This is the Personal Finance Show.
Hi, I'm Bo Humphreys, and this is the Personal Finance Show. Did you know that Canada has a financial literacy leader? It's true. Jane Rooney was appointed Canada's financial literacy leader in 2014 within the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, or the FCAC. Yes, there is a government official whose main job is to make sure Canadians are financially literate. Jane is awesome, and she's joining me in the second half of this episode. But first, let's talk about the only reason I even know Jane exists, and that's because of the Conference Board of Canada. Earlier this week, February 21st and 22nd, 2018, they hosted a conference called Financial Wellness and Retirement Readiness. While preparing for the conference, I found out the FCAC was a sponsor, and they offered me an interview with Jane Rooney. From the conference board, I was offered an interview with their Vice President of Industry Strategy and Public Policy, Thériault. Louis gave a great presentation about the current state of financial wellness in the workplace. After the presentation, I sat down with Louis and asked him how he got into this world of economic and policy analysis.
Becoming an economist was the path of least resistance because I like numbers. So I was just looking for things to add up.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's always been an interest of mine, and through work over time, and more recently with the financial wellness theme as a research theme, we started to add that to a whole series of research projects around wellness in the workplace.
Was it always money, or was it just numbers? Was it just, or like trends, graphs, and stuff like that?
What started just like that, just to show something, show a trend and explain what's going on and trying to find reasons why. And over time, the financial dimension of things, like I've always looked at money as a mean. So to me, I know what's enough, and it's always been really, really clear. But getting to that what's enough money for who I am has been like what has been underpinning my discussions with my wife, with my daughter, in fact, how I define my career.
Because it's different for everyone. You were saying this earlier, the definition of what is financial wellness, it's such an individual thing. And personal finance is personal. We say these things all the time. Is it the way that you grew up? Does that impact this? Like, do you feel like, how did you get your financial wellness sense?
Well, I guess that's a really good question. And now I've never reflected on that specifically in this kind of context, but my parents are one of psychologists, the other one is a French literature prof. So
bad with money? No.
Yes. I guess that's exactly that. Money has been like whatever, like good jobs.
They're focusing on their arts, right? They're focusing on what they know, their skills.
Yeah.
And they're not financial professionals.
Not at all. In fact, they couldn't care less about money. So they were just knowing they had enough.
Yes.
Not knowing exactly what that enough really meant. So they were ending up being short.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so they never focused on... Okay, so that's interesting. They never focused on what was enough because maybe they had enough to live while they were working, but then it didn't work out, when they were tired or when they couldn't work anymore. Is that what you're saying?
It kind of balanced that over time, but it's always been like
right on the line.
Right on the line.
Okay,
and me as a teenager, young adult, and needing a bit of help here and there, and not having it. And just hearing that, there's no flexibility in our personal finance. Like, I can't really, you're going to have to figure it out on your own, how to pay for this, or how to do this or that. So, you know what? I don't want to live a life like that where I never know where I am. Yeah. And I don't want to live a life where I don't have any wiggle room. So
that's good
that started from the get-go because things worked out with my parents, but the wiggle room didn't exist, which I found annoying.
And I think people take, especially when growing up, I think they take the wiggle room for granted, right? That, I want to go on a trip, or, can I take that exchange program? And so some people would love to go do that in high school, and then maybe they find out, we can't afford this. And then I guess you get that realization that, not everyone's financial situation is the same. But we don't talk about it, right?
We don't.
We were talking about stigma earlier, right? And there's still so much stigma around this. And today, the conference that we're at here is, it's really about, most Canadians are either working for someone or working for themselves. So this topic is relevant to just about everybody. Either they're the employer, or they're the employee, or they're their own employee. Either way, wellness in the workplace is a common topic for everyone if you work at all. And so today we were talking about, how financial wellness is subjective, which we just mentioned. And I wanted to address the idea of, we hear about absenteeism, so someone's stressed out, either financially or just generally, and then they miss work. But can you talk about presenteeism and what that actually means?
Yeah, it's being at work, but not actually doing your work.
And what are they doing instead?
So if you're stressed by your personal finance, for example, something that came up during our conversations today, you'll spend time looking at the stock market. You'll spend time talking to your wife around, how will we make ends meet?
Okay, yeah.
Or you'll talk to your children about, how we're going to deal with that financial situation because we don't have that wiggle room, for example. So you spend time at work doing other things than working.
You're physically present.
And you're physically present, but the financial stressor that is important is one of the important stressors out there that eventually triggers anxiety and maybe depression in certain cases. So you have a cascading series of events, and it's different degrees. It's not a constant on-off switch, but there's a continuum, a spectrum of degrees of presenteeism or distractions that will prevent you from being fully productive and fully present in your work and totally dedicated to your work. So that's the presenteeism concept is from that. So of course financial stress is part of what causes it, but mental health, more broadly defined, physical health. And that's one of the tension in a service economy where a lot of people sit behind their desk all day long. They work behind a computer. We're not in an economy where you produce widgets anymore.
So they're not being so with knowledge work, as you're saying, you're not being productive at all. At least maybe if somebody was stressed out on an assembly line, they could still get the products through and their mental state, they might not be very happy doing it, but it would get done. And it's complete opposite. The productivity just drops when you're into knowledge work because maybe you're doing something, but it's not good. You're doing the bare minimum or whatever you need to do for the day. So is the idea that companies are recognizing this. You're talking about it today. Everyone's providing more proof that this is real, and they're taking it seriously?
Yes. Well, in fact, the whole theme of wellness in the workplace in the context of labor force aging, some labor shortages in many industries. So making sure that the employees you have are treated well, number one. But number two, when there's some programs the employers can implement to help employees be more productive in the workplace is becoming a central theme. So it's physical, it's mental, and the financial component of wellness in the workplace is starting to emerge as a theme that employers need to pay attention to because of the level of stress this creates. It's a psychological stress. There's many others that people and individuals have to deal with, but the financial stress is one that is of particular importance. So that's hence the event today, hence some of the research that's starting to be produced on that theme, which is new. We're really pioneers in that sphere of financial wellness.
What angle are the employers implementing to be able to either, I guess, prevent or address? So is prevention more of the focus?
It's part of it. I would say that prevention and also recognizing signs that something's off and dealing with that before it gets too bad or deteriorates. So it's the whole notion of spectrum. So it's a dial more than a switch.
Yes. So if you notice, or if the employee feels, or if you're an employee and you are like having some financial troubles, and you need to talk to somebody, but you don't know where to go, so you're just kind of keeping it to yourself. If your employer had a resource for you to go to or somebody to talk to, and now there's employee assistance lines and stuff like that and programs. But if there were resources like a website to go just to read more about financial stuff and how do I get out of this, if you just felt more comfortable, then you could address it at the beginning before it sort of explodes, right?
Yeah, and it's tied to mental. I think the whole
Yes.
issue of mental wellness
Yes.
is directly tied to that. I would say it's the same theme, really. Like and some of the work done in the last few years around mental health and destigmatize mental health applies totally to the situation around financial wellness and the trigger around anxiety down the road and things that will eventually make you really sick.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
objectively sick.
Yes.
So recognizing the signs, and so the programs, the effectiveness of programs to deal with mental health in the workplace in terms of training supervisors, training employees, having internal resources, customizing, because it's different by age group, by
everybody.
industry. So you have to. There's no one size fits all to this. So the internal resource dedicated to recognizing signs, socializing this, working on the culture in the workplace, so it becomes acceptable to talk about these things. So that's all part of it, and then the measuring the outcome, whether or not we're doing the right thing, is where we are at now. Like there's a lot of things that are proposed, not much measuring in terms of impact so far.
Yeah, because what you said about how it's being all connected, I always like to say that money problems usually have nothing to do with money. The money is the result. In my specific case, the mental health issue and attention deficit disorder causes the coping mechanism of addiction, which, of course, since it was a gambling addiction, the financial impact was severe and quicker than, say, if you were buying cigarettes every day to cope, which is costly over the long run, but it's not going to break your bank, in a day or a month. In my situation, any of the resources that would have been available, and they were to me. I mean, I went to CAMH, and so I guess in an employee situation where if you were at work and you just didn't know, if somebody at least said, hey, Center for Addiction and Mental Health, if you have a gambling problem, here's a resource, and you think, maybe I do have a gambling problem. Oh, and then you feel like your workplace supports that, right? But you're right, it's all connected, and I'm just looking at 11.3 days lost per person per year due to financial wellness stress.
If you have it, If financial stress is important, then it can lead to up to 11 days. And that's the early research in the States. That's back to, I think, some of the hard evidence we need to start working on to raise the profile of the issue of financial stress and the consequences on financial wellness and mental health. This is the early evidence around that. So we need to do more on that front, but it's just early indication that this is serious. But to your point, it's both ways. In your case, your example was it started with your mental wellness.
Yes.
It was you had ADHD, so there was something to deal with that triggered financial problem.
But it goes the other way too.
It's the other way.
People have anxiety from the fact that maybe something happened in their life, an emergency that they couldn't pay for, so now they're in debt, and it's causing them anxiety that other way.
Exactly.
Yeah. I feel like, are people overconfident about their ability to manage their money? Is that the result?
There's a big question mark for me when we talk about money and the relationship that people have with money in our society. I think there's a whole much bigger conversation around social norms, what's acceptable in terms of being transparent about money and your personal finance. Something about salaries, like today we talked about hiding or not making salaries public, allowing some employers to pay less for equivalent occupations when it's women taking over the job. So these kind of things. So there's a relationship to money in our society that needs to be recalibrated, I would argue.
I think so.
Because money should be talked about like any other tool.
Yeah, you have a very practical approach to that.
Yeah, so there's something, it's personally strange for me to relate to that, but I see it. And I've seen it in friends that are economists, professionals, making good money and being like loaded on credit cards with 20% interest and not dealing with that. and talking to them about common sense, how to do this, and they would still not do it until they were reaching the tipping point.
Maybe because they're too far gone by the time they have the conversation, or they just have such pride. There's a lot of a lot of that, eh?
I guess if you let it accumulate over time, it gets harder to deal with. But there's a certain degree of denial also. It seems that, okay, well, money is just something that's supposed to serve me. So as long as I have enough, it's okay.
I'll keep making it.
Yeah, but it creeps on you. Like,
really
you're
does.
making that purchase, you're making that family decision. If it turns out your partner is not really well acquainted numbers and not really comfortable with numbers, one of the two partners is dealing with financial matters, it can go south pretty quickly if that person in charge of the financial matters is not really on top of its game.
That's a good point. You should be aligned if you're sharing finances with somebody. Just have that conversation at the beginning, right? So if somebody wanted to, there's a lot of good stuff that everybody's talking about today in terms of implementing programs in work and having like wellness fairs and things like that. So say you're in a company, you work for somebody, and there's really nothing going on. Where do they go, or who do they talk to find, to get this started, to find the resources for financial wellness or just overall mental health and addiction wellness?
It turns out that the insurers, if you go on the
for
web,
benefits,
for benefits, but insurers have over the last, I would say about 10 years, the whole notion of wellness has become a central theme for them.
Okay.
For different reasons. Like it's a win. I call that the triple win.
Yeah.
There's a win for the employee for doing the right thing in terms of wellness, physical, mental, financial. There's a win for the employer because the employer gets better productivity.
Yeah, they lose that presenteeism.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of ROI calculations in terms of every dollar spent on wellness and prevention comes back in spades.
So you can justify this to the executives, Yeah,
for financial, it's a little tougher. For health and mental health, it's easier.
But we're getting that data soon.
We're getting that data. And then the third win is of course for the insurers themselves, the providers of these services, because it's the financial sustainability of their clients. They want to, so it plays, and I would say there's a quadruple win that case because society as a whole gains from that. So it's really virtuous to deal with this, and so insurers have taken a leadership role in this, which is good, which is fantastic.
That's good.
And there's many provincial and federal programs as well that people can tap into. So it's becoming much more acceptable and socialized.
It's not just about the bottom line anymore. I mean, they see the effect on the bottom line, but the good news is we have studies that show that there's a positive effect on cash for them, but also on people, and as you said, society. So you're right, it's a quadruple win for everybody, and I think this is great that this conference is happening. So
this theme needs to live.
I think it needs to live.
Yeah, we're pioneers in that sphere, and I think Sun Life and Manulife has shown a lot of leadership on this. I think we're moving beyond like the practical tools and approaches that are more tactical, and something that's coming closer to a strategy. That's more integrated. So all the activities to support well-being becomes more integrated around that strategy, where all the parts start connecting and making sense to deliver the best result for people.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So as Louis said, there's a quadruple gain with financial wellness programs. The employee gets financial information and support to get out of financial trouble or to prevent them from getting into it in the first place. The employer benefits from less downtime and more productivity. The insurers save money when overall health is improved. And overall wellness is good for society as a whole. So companies are making positive changes. What about the government? When I started researching Jane Rooney for this interview, I was totally surprised by the commitment the government has made to strengthen the financial literacy of Canadians. Here's Jane to tell us about her path to becoming Canada's financial literacy leader.
I'm happy to share information about how I learned financial literacy growing up, because I'm actually really proud. My parents were my role models. Frankly, my parents continue to be role models for me because they really instilled in all kids in my family, there are 4 of us, that we needed to earn money to be able to spend money. So they encouraged us all to get part-time jobs when we were of age. And we all were able to pay for our own education and support around our post-secondary education as a result. So I'm proud because my parents talked a lot about the importance of saving before spending. They didn't use credit, and I know that that was a different time.
Well, that's
I
interesting.
grew up
Not at all.
They didn't use credit when we were kids. My dad gave my mom, who was a stay-at-home mom when we were kids, he gave her a set amount for groceries. So in cash, she'd have an envelope, and that was the money for the week for groceries.
Wow, that's
So we really
such a
stuck to our
contrast
budget. Yeah,
to
total
what
contrast to
people
today.
are people are like today.
Sure. So yeah, growing up, of course, my parents, great role models. So I learned a lot about money. I wouldn't say I learned everything about money at home. My parents just acted as great role models. I wouldn't say we talked a lot about money, but we were aware that we had set budget for groceries, for example. We were encouraged, and my mom brought me to a bank when I was 12 years old. I was babysitting, so I had some money. So she helped me open up my first bank account. My dad helped me, he loaned me some money for my first vehicle. So it was a way to borrow and learn how to pay down debt at very low cost, of course, because the loan was from my father.
So they taught
So
you
I
through
think,
actions rather than, actually just sitting down and talking about the topics. They just helped you to accomplish certain things.
yeah, we learn by doing. And my parents continue to be great role models. My parents are in their 80s. My father's 85. My mom's just turning 80. And,
Wow.
they had a solid retirement. They had a plan for their retirement, even though, times are fairly difficult living on low income because that's the area they're in. My mom has some health issues. So, paying for health care for those kinds of things in your older age, it's really important to have planned that out in your savings plan throughout your life. And they did that. So they're able to pay for medication. They're able to pay for their lifestyle, which is they're great role models in my mind.
That's really good because I was just thinking as you were saying that you put together this, well, I was on the website, this huge financial literacy plan for Canada. And when you were going through the seniors bit, were your parents like top of mind throughout?
I would say for sure my parents, but even more broadly, like I'm very aware of our population is aging in Canada, right? We have
Mm-hmm.
more seniors now than kids under the age of 15.
Is that
So
true?
top of
Wow.
mind for us, yeah, top of mind for me in the early days of being in the role of financial literacy leader was what are the types of audiences that are out there, and seniors and people nearing their retirement years, for example, was a key population for us. Growing population, we know people in their senior years are carrying more debt now than ever before. So I really wanted to have a better sense of what the needs were, what's out there for a seniors population so that we could help address some of them. So an early milestone was actually a strategy for helping strengthen financial literacy of seniors and near seniors here in Canada. But of course, we broadened that beyond the seniors and near seniors and did more consultations on really vulnerable populations that we saw in survey results. Broadened to Indigenous peoples, low income people, newcomers to Canada, and people with disabilities. And then we did like a final phase of consultations, adults and youth more broadly, because again, you have to think about the whole spectrum of the population from our young people right through to the seniors population. And I learned so much in that consultation phase. And that resulted in, as you described, the national strategy for financial literacy here in Canada. We launched in 2015.
So this was 2014. You toured around Canada talking to various groups?
Yeah, we did a massive set of consultations. So we issued 3 papers from FCAC for comment and ran across the country, frankly, meeting with organizations and seniors directly in the first phase, with organizations working with different vulnerable populations in the second phase, and then more broadly, organizations that had a youth focus and really workplace came into play for adults. So yeah, we learned a lot in that first year. The other thing we did in 2014 was a massive financial capability survey. So we surveyed over 6,000 adults, 18 to into the seniors years, to better identify what were the financial literacy needs of individuals. Some of the questions are around, do you have a budget? How many bank accounts do you have? So getting to the idea, are people shopping around for products and services? What's the scope of the products and services that they have? Did they have multiple credit cards, that kind of thing? We asked about even government benefits like RESPs, the Registered Education Savings Plan, and whether or not people were saving for their kids' education, whether people were aware of the Canada Learning Bond, for example, for low-income people, government supports for helping your kids pay for a post-secondary. So a fabulous learning experience for me, that's for sure.
Everybody can go on the website and read this whole plan, right? I'll put the links in this is very detailed stuff I was looking through, and even the FCAC's mandate is, what it was, 11 objectives or something like that. And there's so much documentation for each part of this, right?
Yeah, we have great information on canada.ca/money. The strategies described there, the consultation work that we undertook was there, but also there's a vast array of information just to help people understand better money information. So how to manage your debt, how to pay down credit card debt. We have interactive tools like a budget calculator. We have mortgage calculators, top of mind for many people right now. We have a financial literacy database that combines information from not only FCAC, the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, but other organizations that have tools and resources to help people better understand things like budgeting, money management, insurance, savings, investing, that kind of thing.
So you had really great parents from a financial standpoint. They kind of gave you some guidance as you went along. Why doesn't everybody do this? And why do you think that everyone is, a lot of people are actually just afraid to talk about money? You said your parents didn't talk about it directly, but they kind of guided you. But a lot of people are just, they just don't know what to do. And why do you think that is, in simplistic terms, I guess?
I think people think money is complicated. There are lots of financial products and services out there, so it's a fairly complex financial marketplace, first of all. Money has been a taboo subject. A lot of people aren't comfortable talking about money, and frankly, a lot of people find it scary.
Why do you think, other than the complexity of products, I mean, it's not that complicated, though, to spend less than you make, the basics, right? Why did that become such a taboo thing? Do you have any insight on that?
I think that from what I've learned from the organizations that I've met with over the past almost 4 years in this job, people are telling me that people are scared about money because it's a very personal and emotional topic.
It is.
First of all, so it's a very personal thing, and so you have to make sure that the person trusts you to have a conversation, and that's why there are lots of organizations, including FCAC, that develops content and tools to help people understand online. For example, you can do your work online, better understand products and services, have a sense of what kinds of questions you might want to ask of a financial professional, and then sort of gain a little bit more confidence, to go into, say, a financial institution to open up an account or explore another financial product like getting a credit card, for example. So it's emotional, it's a very personal thing, and people need to feel trust in a relationship before they're comfortable talking about it.
It's part of the FCAC's job to oversee banks in one way or another. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're the bank consumer protection regulator, and we oversee the federal financial institutions like banks. And It's really the consumer protection provisions like, if you have a credit card, we oversee disclosure of the interest rate so that they have to tell you what's your interest rate. How is interest calculated? If you have a bank account, we oversee that the bank tells you any fees or anything, costs associated with that bank account. The fact that you can open the bank account is also legislation we oversee. Every Canadian has the right to open up a bank account with the proper ID. So it's FCAC that enforces those consumer provisions.
You probably run into, or have in the last couple of years, situations where banks are trying to sell products or recommend products that aren't necessarily in the best interest of consumers. Would you have any examples of that, and maybe if they've had to correct it or?
Well, interestingly enough, we're actually in the field right now with a massive bank sales practices review.
Mm.
You may be aware that last year a go public information was released that some of the financial institutions employees were saying that there were some challenges. So FCAC launched a massive undertaking, a bank sales review practice, and actually we'll be releasing that report in the next couple of months.
Okay.
So more to come on what the sales practices review looked like, what we found. Any of the actual investigations that might have been uncovered through this sales practices review kind of goes through this other phase, which is our investigators, our compliance officers actually do an investigation. And if there's a violation of a law, then that will be a separate stream where the commissioner can actually we have a commissioner, that's the head of our organization, Lucy Tedesco, and if she agrees with the findings, she can actually put a bank in violation of those acts. So more to come on that, but we have a call center, and we accept calls from consumers who feel that they haven't had their rights adhered to. So if they think that there's something wrong, they're more than welcome to call FCAC and talk to us about their issues. Yeah,
I'll put that information in the show notes as well. In terms of how, if you have, if there's online ways or phone numbers to call. It's actually kind of it's a nice comfort to know that when the banks are, I guess, behaving badly, if you will, you guys are just ready to investigate.
That's right. There's a regulator in place at the federal level. We're responsible for that. So we really need to know from consumers what's happening on the ground, but we also do our own proactive investigations, of course. But yeah, it's great for consumers to, if you have any questions at all, just come and ask the FCAC. We're here. So
the FCAC, in so many words, is looking out for Canadian consumers.
That's right.
In all aspects that you could probably think of, and they're all detailed on the website. So you went to university, I think Carleton, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I did economics at Carleton.
So economics, and then you went into the financial industry.
Actually, when I first graduated from university, government wasn't hiring, and I found it really interesting. I worked for members of parliament for a number of years, doing, helping consumers out, really navigating some of their issues. So that was fascinating to learn about government from a different perspective and helping people maneuver through the different challenges. I loved helping people, so that was a really rewarding position. But I came across an organization called the Canadian Payments Association. There was an ad in the newspaper. That's not how you find jobs anymore, but that's how you did in the early 90s, right?
Yep.
And applied for a position with the Canadian Payments Association. And that's an organization that writes rules for moving money and clearing and settling money between different financial institutions. So, so I worked there for almost 8 years and helped develop rules around direct deposit, pre-authorized debit, bill payments. So really it's the rules for the banks, but in those rules, there were some consumer protection. If a pre-authorized debit comes through your account that you didn't authorize, there are things that you can do to get your money back. And so those are the types of rules and things that I did at the CPA for that 7.5 years. And then, in the late 90s, there was a task force called the McKay Task Force that was doing an evaluation of the financial system. And they came up with a report that said consumers weren't well represented. There was an imbalance of power in the financial services sector. So too much power with the financial institutions, not enough with consumers. So what came into being was a brand new organization called the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada. And so I applied when the organization was, first came to be. And
right
was
from the beginning. Wow.
Yeah. So I was one of the first consumer education officers here at FCAC, and I've been here for 16 years.
Wow, that's awesome. And so you started, and your job was focusing on financial education.
Always. So yeah, when I first came to the agency, I was responsible for analyzing consumer inquiries and complaints and figuring out, what really, we're the window to consumers, right? So it's analyzing what are consumers' issues, what are they saying, what are their concerns, and then developing the web content to help increase people's awareness about their rights, that we oversee, about different products and services. So yeah, I was responsible for developing web content to help people and better understand money. So throughout my first years here, it was really about that, developing information, analyzing what the issues were, and um, throughout the years, I increased responsibilities. I became the director of the Financial Literacy and Consumer Education Program in 2008, when FCAC got a new legislative mandate to really strengthen. We call financial literacy strengthening the knowledge, the skills, and the confidence to help people make responsible financial decisions. So at that time, we got some funding from government to develop programs for youth. That was our initial target audience in 2008. So we did develop a program called The City that is still continues to be used by teachers all across Canada. So it's a very comprehensive program to help kids who are around the age of 15, 16 learn about money from a fun and engaging way.
And they learn it
And
in a specific class in high school?
yeah, so we're really fortunate in Canada. Since 2008, when that program was first launched, till today, all provinces and territories in Canada teach financial literacy to a certain extent. At the time this program was first launched, we worked with British Columbia Securities Commission because they were the only province that had a financial literacy program embedded in their curriculum, and that was geared towards grade 10 kids. Well, now today, all provinces and territories are teaching financial literacy to a certain extent. So, for example, in Ontario, grades 4 to grade 12 have had financial literacy embedded in their curriculum since 2012. But this year, the Minister of Education announced a brand new program starting in September 2018
Okay.
that career in civics. A portion of that's going to be financial literacy.
Okay.
In Quebec, starting September 2017, all kids before they leave their secondary education have to take a mandatory financial literacy course. So
Oh,
it's
that's so
very, very
great.
different days.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have an idea of when the term financial literacy actually started to be used widely?
Yeah, the definition of financial literacy was first developed in 2005
Okay.
internationally by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development.
And I guess that's just from the observation that our studies are, in terms of things like the FCAC that were built to analyze and determine, well, what's the conclusion? People are less financially literate than we might like.
Yeah, there was great recognition that people really needed to better understand the complexity and the specific products and services, but more broadly, even the basics of budgeting. Once you know where your money is coming in and where the money is going out, you can feel a little bit more comfortable and confident and in control of your money.
Absolutely.
And then you can see how you can pay down debt. You can make spending decisions that change where you're spending your money, and so you can help pay down debt and increase your savings.
It's the biggest thing that I run into as a personal finance coach is that people just don't know how much they make and how much they spend. And it seems like such a basic thing, right? But if you don't know that stuff, you're guessing at investments, the amount of money that you have left over, and whether you can actually afford something.
Yeah, that's, the first step is definitely tracking your expenses. And most people, and I would hazard to say all people, would be surprised at where does their money go in a day. People forget about that coffee they paid for in the morning, or, oh, I'll just, buy that little thing. But it all adds up, right? And so if you're tracking your expenses for a certain period of time, you can have a better sense of where the money's going. And then again, you make the decision yourself about whether or not you like your spending habits. And if you can make some changes and pay down debt, all the better.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in terms of other ways people are learning, I'm hearing about this financial wellness in the workplace thing that's happening because I'll be attending the conference in a couple of weeks in Toronto.
Terrific. It's actually a Conference Board of Canada conference,
Okay,
and
yeah.
FCA will be one of the sponsors. And we are really, really trying to promote workplace financial literacy because, like the school system that we just talked about, workplace is a great way to reach adults
It's
in
school.
a
It's like school for the adults, right? It's the same thing,
exactly.
sort of.
And what we're learning, there's a growing body of evidence that shows a link between financial stress and health of employees.
Hmm.
And that extends to people 42% of Canadians say that financial stress is their greatest stress. And
Wow.
that leads to other health issues. But it also affects the workplace. And what the evidence shows is that employees are absent more, they're less productive, they're distracted if they feel financial stress. And so the idea of bringing financial literacy programs into the workplace is sort of a win-win for both the employer and the employee, because the employee is learning where they're already at, which we learn through our consultations is super important for adults. We're all very busy people. So by bringing a financial literacy program into the workplace, a lunch and learn, you're already in the workplace, being supported by your employer to do this learning is another thing that's really important. But people getting that information will be less stressed, they'll be more productive, they'll be more present, if you will, at the workplace. And then, of course, there's the win for the employer. They have a more productive workplace and a happier workforce.
So instead of just focusing on, health benefits or chiropractic or massage or anything, businesses are seeing the value, I guess, through your research that it's actually worth it. It's like trying to convince the companies in the 70s to have any kind of social plan.
Yeah, exactly. We're really emphasizing the importance of financial well-being in the mental health within the workplace. Again, we're seeing that people are not sleeping well. Their blood pressure has increased because of financial stress. So the direct link between health, mental health, and financial well-being is very, very close. And so it's as people organizations are creating strategies for the workplace, we want financial well-being to be part of that.
I like that you said mental health because, as you might know, that's my background is in addiction, in recovery, and attention deficit disorder was my mental disorder, still is. I'm just medicated for it. I was leading a kind of a dual life at one point, going to work in the day and everything was normal, and then at night I had an addiction. And I think, maybe something like this would have helped me, or maybe given me the resource that I needed earlier about filing a consumer proposal or bankruptcy, the tools that I ended up using to sort of crawl my way out.
Yeah, I mean, you're very brave to come public with the issues that you've had, and I totally give you credit for that, and congratulations for
Well, thank you.
recovery
Yes.
and raising awareness, because we really do see that broadly. People challenged with mental health issues, it's becoming a much, much better conversation now. It's much more accepted. Organizations like federal government have a clear focus on mental health. And where the financial health comes into play is there's a direct link. So again, in federal government, part of our mental health strategy is now including FCAC's financial literacy program.
Well, that's perfect.
Our content sits in the mental health portal. It's a portal that's created for all employees within federal government because there is such a correlation.
It's so likely that a mental health issue will cause some kind of financial problem, right? Because what happens is you cope in some way and you don't have the ability, whatever mental health issue it is, you may turn to addiction, but it's causing you stress in your life. And that usually leads to either overspending or spending on the problem that you have.
That's right. And the amazing thing is there are so many more organizations that can help now than ever before. People are now talking about this link between mental health and financial well-being. So it shouldn't hopefully be such a taboo to talk to your employee benefits program, for example, about how can I get some help. We're actually working across a bunch of organizations on a new workplace working group, and we have HR professionals on there. We have representatives from the employee benefits plans, like the life and health insurance organizations that offer these programs, like the Sun Lifes, the Manulifes, Great West Lifes, for example. Canadian Payroll Association, the organization that helps over 200, I believe, organizations run their payroll systems, chartered professional accountants. So we're working across different industries that are all coming together to develop and deliver workplace financial literacy programs, so that employees know where to turn to get that help that they need.
Well, that sounds fantastic. I was really pleasantly surprised to find out all the things that I did, when I was reading. To be completely honest, I didn't know that you existed. I was sure that there was somebody leading, but I didn't know that there was a financial literacy leader appointed, and it's a great thing to me to learn about this, and I hope we can keep in touch as you go through the mandate and all of the things that you've been tasked to do.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a wonderful opportunity, and I've loved the opportunity to share what I do, but also learn a little bit more about what you do. And again, I encourage all your listeners to contact FCAC, to come to our website, canada.ca/money, learn a little bit more, and we're really here to help. And thank you so much for the opportunity, Bo. It's been a great pleasure to talk with you today.
Thanks so much, Jane.
Thank you.
A common theme at the conference and in the discussion with Jane is the importance of overall wellness. Whether you go through what I did and have mental health issues that caused addiction, which led to financial problems, or whether you have unanticipated financial issues, which in turn may cause mental health issues, we now understand that one can't be addressed without looking at the others. And though we didn't focus on it, physical wellness, including healthy eating habits, play a huge part in overall wellness. I would like to thank Jane and Louis for taking the time to share their stories and insight. It's comforting to know that there are people out there who are looking out for us and trying to improve the overall well-being of Canadians. Next week on the Personal Finance Show, Lindsay and Graham Plum from Moolah Financial Coaches and Advisors join me. I had a really fun chat with Lindsay and Graham and how they're helping Canadians become unstoppable, which is now my favorite word. If you enjoy listening to the Personal Finance Show, please show your support by subscribing and leaving a review on iTunes. No time for a review? Just leave me a star rating. It takes 2 seconds. InvestWisely.ca is where you can find all the show notes and links, and of course all of my blog posts. I'd love to hear from you, so please feel free to send me an email at bo@investwisely.ca.